Hello, family members. Hope you're having a nice day today. I'd like to talk to you today about something I've been thinking about quite a bit since last Tuesday, since the off year election. Normally, a time when people are not really that excited to go out to the polls because there's not usually that much to vote for. But we had a pretty high amount of participation across the country where elections were going on. And a shocking number of those seats went blue, so to speak. And so this last week has been a little bit of a victory lap for Democrats. But interestingly, I've noticed it hasn't really been that big of a victory lap for the Democratic leadership. Like, Nancy Pelosi is like noping out of the party. She's retiring. She's done, which is good. She knows how to read the room. I'll say that for her. And she knows when she's no longer really wanted at the party. And good for her to have the sense to see that and to step away before she's pushed out. I don't have much good that I can say about Mitch McConnell, but he had that same virtue too. He didn't wait to be completely pushed out. So that's nice for him, I guess. That jerk. Sorry. Anyway, off topic. So, that tension, where's it coming from? Why is it that you don't see Jeffries or Schumer out there crowing nearly as much as you might expect after a blue wave? Why are you seeing one of the biggest names in the Democratic side of the House of Representatives saying that their time in the position is done? You'd think that wouldn't be the case necessarily after a blue wave type of election. However, I think that what we saw on Tuesday really has underscored that the party leadership has lost control of their base. And it's interesting because that's what happened to Mitch McConnell too. His party leadership lost control of its base and let all of their power essentially be eroded from underneath their feet. And that's why you see the old guard of McConnell and Liz Cheney and all of them becoming politically irrelevant because the people that used to vote for them weren't voting for the things that they represented anymore. And I think that's kind of what's happening to Schumer and Jeffries and a lot of the National Democratic Party leadership is the support that they had, their base, is not there anymore. And yet, I don't know that either one of them have the grace to acknowledge that. I don't know if they're aware or not, but they're definitely not given any indication that they are aware of it, and that's certainly a problem. It's really important for our elected representatives to, know what the heck's going on. By the way, I do want to say I'm sure you're hearing Casey roaming around and coughing. I have a dog that has congestive heart failure. He is dying. I've got an appointment to take him to the vet on Tuesday for his final vet visit. And I don't really have any way that I can treat what's going on with him. He is literally dying, and he wants to be where I am. So I can't film without there being some coughing sounds. I hope you'll bear with us on this. Anyway, so yeah, we're at a place where the Democratic Party is at a crossroads. I've been thinking a lot about that song by Kendrick Lamar, Humble. Do you know that It's not like one of his most recent ones, but it's a fairly well-known song. He did it at the part of his Super Bowl medley. Love that part where the choreo where they step down the steps. Anyway, I was thinking about that song a lot because I think being humble, humility, is what we need in the Democratic Party. I'm not sure if you've heard of him, but there is a guy named Graham Plattner running in Maine for, I believe it's Senate, isn't it Senate? I could have had that confused. Don't quote me on that, but I do know that he's running, and I do know that he has a Nazi tattoo on his chest. Or at least he used to. I guess he had a hasty cover-up as soon as it was made public that he had that tattoo. But this comes on the heels of him having this whole big, like, rigmarole about, nasty things he used to say on Reddit. And, they tried to kind of spin that initial controversy with hey, we're not going to be able to have politicians that have fully clean social media records. This is the young generation coming up. Well, number one, he's not that young, okay? And number two, I don't know. I do think it's possible to find people who haven't said, like, morally reprehensible things online. I think even when people are young and dumb, they're not always just automatically morally reprehensible. Maybe a little foolish, but, there's a line. I don't know. What do you think, Leslie? She doesn't have an opinion on this. She's not very political, to be honest. But she is going to show her butt. Thanks, Leslie. We really appreciate that. Come on. Have a little shame. Have some respect for yourself. Maybe she just likes it. I'm not judging. I'm sorry, Leslie. I won't judge you. But this is my YouTube channel. So, okay. I think it's funny watching, like, the Pod Save America guys and all these other, like, Democrat, centrist, liberal pundit types try to, like, spin this Graham Plattner thing like it's not so bad. No, da 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 da. And then I watched a Gen Z content creator that I like, Eden Riley, and she's just like, no, what the heck are you talking about? Why would anyone want to vote for somebody? How do you go, all of this stuff, just all of the, like, weak excuses just blowing through them, like, come on, that's ridiculous. And I think that's where we are. We have these, establishment Democrat types that have the connections to all the people that are, in office now, trying to spin the narrative and trying to, promote the people that they think are good or that they like or whatever. And I think that it's time for them to realize that what we need in the Democratic Party leadership especially, but in the Democratic Party generally, is some freaking humility. I don't care about that Graham Plattner guy, okay? Like, why are we rolling around upside down and backwards to try to defend a guy who has a tattoo like that? I've got tattoos. I know what the process is like. Now, it's possible that maybe he just went in there and it just happened to be Flash on the wall and he thought it looked cool. There are people who stupidly get tattoos that way. Well, you know what? No judgment. It's their body. They can express themselves how they like. However, oh boy, what kind of place would you be patronizing, getting a tattoo from that would have that kind of symbology just sitting around as flash art? That's a little sus. There's a lot of things that are extremely suspicious on top of the things that are overtly suspicious. And it's just like, hey, maybe we don't need this guy. Maybe he ought to be humble enough to say, you know what? No, I get it. The party the cause is bigger than me, I'm going to step aside. I've got all these negatives. Obviously, it's going to turn people away. I'm going to listen to the people and what they want, and I'm going to step away. Wow, why can't we have that level of humility? Why can't we have people who are willing to step aside? It's not essential to keep Chuck Schumer in the House of Representatives. It's essential to keep that seat with somebody who, is going to serve the country's interests and not just corporate interests. But is that what he's doing even now? I was watching, I think it was Francesca Fioroni. What is her name? Last name? She goes by like Fran Tifa or something. She's lovely. She's a young comedian, pundit type, and she has her like podcast highlights or whatever she uploads on YouTube. And she was watching a video of Emma Vigeland from the Majority Report, which is another, left-leaning podcast, new media type of show. And she was a guest on MSNBC. And the poor woman was just trying to like make a sensible point, and she gets everyone like yelling over her. And one of the things that these like weird centrist corporate types spouted out at Emma is like, well, what about Joe Manchin? We need more Joe Manchin type Democrats. And it made me like almost want to fall out of my chair. I'm like, you people don't know anything about West Virginia politics. Like, you really don't, do you? Okay, let me explain West Virginia politics to everyone. It used to be that the South, all of the South, was Democrats. The Republicans like to, point this out, that at one point the Republicans and the Democrats were essentially swapped as far as like ideology. You had all of these Southern Democrats who were very, very racist. And there was a ton of corruption. And it was, I think, probably at its peak in West Virginia. When you think of political corruption, you might think of like Chicago or New York or, some sort of like gritty urban location. West Virginia. Oh my gosh, the West Virginia politics was so crooked. All of the 20th century, so crooked. And when you started seeing that switch from the South being a Democratic stronghold to a Republican stronghold over the issue of the civil rights movement, West Virginia, as it tends to do, didn't follow with what the rest of the South did, and it remained a Democratic stronghold, at least on paper. However, just because they were caucusing with the national level Democrats and calling themselves Democrats didn't mean they were Democrats in the sense like you would expect. I mean, you've seen Manchin. You've seen the politics probably. You know what that guy is like. He's a central... he's a conservative. He's a sort of almost centrist conservative that was a Democrat because that's what you had to be politically relevant in West Virginia on a statewide level when he was coming up in the world. That's how it was. There just wasn't any real power for anyone on a statewide level in the Republican Party. But in the, I'd say last 15 years, that's changed. When Manchin went from being our governor to being our senator, that was really the last hurrah of the idea of West Virginia Democrats having power. The governor after, we had Jim Justice, you might remember him at the Republican National Convention with his big old fat bulldog baby dog. Like, the dog is more famous than the guy. That's why he was at the Republican National Convention with his dog, because that's just the way the man rolls. And he got elected under the D, and then changed his name to, or changed his party affiliation to R. And ever since that, the Democratic Party has been dead as a doornail in West Virginia. It's sort of a miracle that we had Manchin as long as he did. But the idea that you could capture the type of voter that voted in Manchin under any other circumstances in any other state is absurd. There is no Manchin voter anymore. And to the extent that there ever was, it was only in West Virginia, and it was only due to the weirdest quirks of politics, where everything takes longer to filter through to West Virginia. We're always way behind the times, okay? So, yeah, it just shows to me that a lot of these centrist or corporate or, you know, traditional Democrat talking heads, pundits you see on TV, don't have a fucking clue about politics on a granular level. I was watching Kendrick's Super Bowl performance before I made this video. You know, I got humble bumping around in my head. I wanted to hear it. I love that performance. And as I was sitting there watching it, I was like, I wonder if there's anything I can take from this whole cultural event and apply it to what I'm going to talk about. And I do think there is. I wasn't aware of who Kendrick Lamar even was, like, a year and a half ago, basically. I mean, I kind of knew who he was, but very little exposure to any of his work or what he was about. And then after all of the, like, Drake rap battle stuff was over, one of my favorite YouTubers, FD Signifier, put out a very long, very detailed video explaining all of the backstory and how we got where we were with that, and all of the meaning behind all of the things that Kendrick did and didn't do. And I loved that video. I watched it maybe even 100 times or more. I mean, it was ridiculous. I rewatch a lot of videos. It's a coping mechanism for stress and whatnot. But anyway, so when all of this happened, because Kendrick, according to FD Signifier, I will say this is my interpretation of events based on primarily his interpretation of events. But the man did not like Drake, and Drake was sort of at a weak point in his career. And then, according to FD's interpretation, all of that was like a Machiavellian execution plot to essentially take the man out of cultural relevance entirely. I think I saw Osprey back there. Sorry, I got distracted. Anyway, so that's sort of what I started thinking about. You know, we can learn from Kendrick. We, meaning people who are not of that Democrat, leadership class. You know, those of us who are the actual base, and those of us who would like to take the energy that we see with No Kings and make something of it. You know, my concern with the whole No Kings thing is this is going to be Occupy Wall Street 2.0. Did we really get that much out of Occupy Wall Street in the long-term sense? I don't know that we did, because nobody ever was able to find a way to speak to that movement and take that energy and make something of it. And I think that if we, meaning people who are progressives or leftist, would like to actually, see some change in this country for the good, make things easier for people, make life better for people, if we really want to achieve our goals, we are at a precipice. We are at a very important moment in our history. We have an opportunity here. We have momentum, we have energy, and they do not. And it is time to find a way to make those political dinosaurs die. It's time for us to stand up to those establishment politicians who feel like they've been there so long and worked so hard and followed all the rules that they just deserve to be where they are, whether or not they want to listen to their base. We need to tell them, you are not more important than the cause. You are not more important than the party. You are not more important than your constituents or your constituency or the country as a whole. It is time for us to demand humility from the Democratic leadership, from Cory Booker and from, Gavin Newsom and people who are fairly likable, that have people who do like them and a lot of the things they do. This is time for them to decide that they're going to listen to us and get on board with us, or we're going to kick them to the curb just like we are with all of these other dinosaurs who refuse to change. We need Gavin Newsom to understand that if he doesn't stand up for trans rights, he has no future on the national Democratic stage. I will never vote for that man until he backtracks on trans issues. Why? Is it because I'm queer myself? Possibly, but not really. Aromantic people, people like me, sort of marginal queer people, I don't expect any politician to speak to my issues. They barely know that we exist, if they know that we exist at all. But I do know that they know what trans people are, and that trans people are under the most intense assault. And if you are not willing to stand up for me when it's the hardest, then why would I vote for you? If this is how he's going to act right now when he thinks it's politically convenient when it comes to trans people, he's not going to save any of the other of us that are marginalized. If they change their mind and start going after gay people or disabled people or whatever, he might just decide it's more politically expedient to stab me in the back in order to extend his political relevance just a little bit longer. I don't trust that man. And unless he's willing to show that he is going to stop making those types of comments, apologize, and fully change direction, he's never going to get any engagement from me. And there's a lot of other people that are like me. And I see a lot of people who are sort of centrist, liberal, Democrat types who really admire him because he does say a lot of funny things and gets a rise out of Donald Trump. And of course, that's fun and whatnot. But that doesn't change at the end of the day. He is not my ally. And if he is not allied to all of us in the base, he is not allied to any of us because he would turn on us all in a moment. And so it is time for us to purge the Democratic Party of people like Newsom, Cory Booker, who are kind of weak, charming but weak. They don't have strong enough principles. I'm sorry, they just don't. And the hostility, the absolute overt hostility that we see towards Zohran Mamdani is a true expression of complete and total panic, because it is further evidence that they can't just go on business as usual, that the party is leaving them behind, and they wanted so badly for something to happen where they wouldn't have to admit that he is more the face of the party than they are. That AOC is more the face of the party that they are. I mean, we saw what happened with Bernie. They tried so hard to take the energy that Bernie could muster, but twist it towards their ideology and not speak to the people that he excited and brought to the party. You cannot see a party get an influx of voters because of an issue and then decide not to address that issue. They won't believe you anymore. That's why the Democratic Party is a fruit dying on the vine right now until they start pruning. It's time to make room for new people. You know, down here in Florida, we have Maxwell Frost. He's a really great politician. David Hogg, a great political advocate who got burned at like hell from the Democratic leadership, even though here we have this young, promising star, rising voice, compelling backstory, being a Parkland survivor. And, maybe I'm a little bit prejudiced because my cousin went to that high school and her daughter currently goes to that high school. But, I've always found David Hogg very compelling. And yet he was just tossed aside. How many other potential voices for a new type of Democratic leadership have been just tossed aside? Because the Democratic leadership would like to choose their voters, not be chosen by their voters. They would like to convince us to vote blue no matter who, when they're getting what they want, but they want to reserve the right to have reservations about Zoran Mondani. Where did vote blue no matter who go? Right there. I think that there are people who are in the Democratic leadership that could pivot and could learn to speak to their base, could learn that ignoring the absolute passion that people are feeling and were feeling about the Palestinian issue and going out of their way to completely push aside any voices that wanted to express that energy at the DNC. They thought, we don't need to let them speak. We have this party on lock. There's no way that they're going to get anybody else, nominated. And, we're better than Trump, and that's all we need to be. And that's not working. It hasn't been working for a long time. You can't just be a little bit better than the other guy, because he's not always in power and people forget. But we need to have people actually care about voting. We need people to actually feel engaged and involved and represented. And that's not what we have right now. So we need people like, what's his face in Maine, to be humble and step aside. We need Schumer to be humble and step aside. We need all of these people who do not represent where the party is at to either decide to change their point of view and speak to the people's needs and wants, or get out of the way. That's all we need right now. But I don't know that that's a all that likely. So, what can we do it? Can we save the Democratic Party from itself? Can the base save the party from the leadership? I guess we'll see. Now, family members, I better let you go. I'd like to show off my little Casey bear one last time. I don't know that I'll make another video before things happen, so. Catch my bear. Casey, where are you going? Oh, come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. That's our bear. 15 years on this planet. Not too bad, huh? I love you guys. Take care of yourselves. And, fight the establishment. Bye.